They laughed when the widow said she would run the business. The lawyers told her to sell everything and live on charity. The bankers refused to even meet with her because she was a woman. 40 years later, she controlled 27,000 apartments and had built the foundation of an empire that would eventually put her grandson in the White House. Her name was Elizabeth Christ Trump, and without her, none of it would exist. May 29, 1918, Woodhaven, Queens, New York. The Spanish flu pandemic is tearing through America like invisible fire. It doesn't care about wealth, doesn't care about power, doesn't care that Friedrich Trump made his fortune building hotels during the Alaska gold rush. The virus finds him anyway. Friedrich is walking with his son Fred. The boy is 12 years old. They're just walking. Normal afternoon, father and son. Then Friedrich stumbles, says he feels dizzy. Fred catches his arm, helps him home. By the next morning, Friedrich Trump is dead, 49 years old. Gone in less than 24 hours. His wife, Elizabeth Christ Trump, is now a widow at 37. 3 children. Elizabeth, 14, Fred, 12, John, 11. No husband, no income. Just grief and terror and the crushing weight of 1918 America, where women can't even vote, can't own businesses in their own names, can't do anything except depend on men who are suddenly very interested in taking everything she has left. The estate is worth $31,359. Sounds like a lot. In today's money, maybe $650,000. But in 1918, New York, with 3 children, property taxes, maintenance, inflation, that money disappears fast. Maybe 3 years if she's careful. 5 years maximum, then poverty, then dependence, then charity. The neighbors in Woodhaven whisper, "Poor Elizabeth, so tragic, so young to be a widow." She'll have to sell the properties, of course. What else can she do? She's just a woman, doesn't understand business, doesn't understand construction. Better to sell now while the properties still have value. Take the money, find a nice apartment. Maybe get work as a governess or a housekeeper. That's what widows do. That's what women do. The family lawyer, older man, practiced smile, sits across from Elizabeth in her small parlor. He has papers, documents. He's already drawn up the sales contracts, just needs her signature. "Mrs. Trump, I've taken the liberty of finding buyers for the properties. With the market uncertainty, I think we should move quickly. Get you set up with a modest income that can support you and the children." Elizabeth looks at him. Doesn't speak immediately. She's a German immigrant, came to America at age 19, married Friedrich at 20, spent 17 years watching her husband build, negotiate, maneuver. She learned, quietly, in the background. While men talked, she listened. While they made deals, she tracked every number. How much are they offering? The lawyer names a figure. It's low. Elizabeth knows it's low because she's been doing something the lawyer doesn't know about. She's been studying property values, reading newspapers, watching the market. While everyone expects her to grieve and collapse, she's been calculating. That's half what the properties are worth. The lawyer shifts, uncomfortable. "Mrs. Trump, with respect, the market is volatile right now. The war is ending. The flu is devastating the economy. It's better to take a guaranteed sum now than risk waiting and losing everything." Elizabeth folds her hands, looks at the lawyer with eyes that don't blink. "I'm not selling." Silence. The lawyer thinks he misheard. "I'm sorry? I said I'm not selling. These properties are going to increase in value. Queens is growing. The city is expanding. I'm keeping them." The lawyer tries a different approach, softer, paternalistic. "Mrs. Trump, I understand you're grieving. You're not thinking clearly. Managing real estate requires business experience, legal knowledge, construction expertise. These aren't things women typically—" Elizabeth stands. "Meeting over. Thank you for your time. You can see yourself out." The lawyer leaves. He tells his colleagues that Elizabeth Trump is making a terrible mistake. She'll be bankrupt within a year. Foolish woman. Too emotional. doesn't understand how the world works. He's wrong about everything except one thing. She doesn't understand how the world works for women. She's about to change the rules. 1920, women get the right to vote in America. Elizabeth is 41 years old. She's been a widow for 2 years. She's still poor, still struggling, but she's still standing. And she has a plan. The properties her husband left aren't developed. They're mostly vacant land. Some small houses, nothing impressive. But Elizabeth sees something others don't. She sees location. She sees Queens transforming from farmland to suburbs. She sees working families who need affordable housing. She sees opportunity where rich men see nothing worth their time. But she needs capital, needs loans, needs materials, needs contractors. And every single one of those things requires dealing with banks and businesses that won't deal with women. So Elizabeth does something brilliant, something necessary, something that will define the Trump empire for generations. 1923, she registers a company, E. Trump and Son. The E stands for Elizabeth, but she only uses the initial, no first name, just E. Trump and Son. Bank managers see the paperwork. E. Trump must be Edward, maybe Eugene, definitely a man. The and son part confirms it. Father and son business, traditional, respectable. They approve meetings. Elizabeth walks into banks wearing simple dark dresses, hair pulled back, serious expression. She brings her son Fred with her. He's 17 now, tall for his age, quiet. Elizabeth does all the talking, all the negotiating, all the number crunching. Fred just stands there looking responsible. The bankers assume Fred is the real power. They smile at him, direct questions to him. Fred, coached by his mother, redirects everything back to Elizabeth. My mother handles the finances. The bankers are confused but charmed. What a devoted son, respecting his widowed mother. How nice. They don't realize she's running the entire operation. They don't realize the E signing. All the contracts is Elizabeth, not Edward. By the time they figure it out, the contracts are already signed, the loans are already approved, and Elizabeth Trump has their money. Before continuing this incredible story, tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from. Write your city and country. Let's see how far this story is reaching. First, construction project. Small house in Woodhaven. Elizabeth oversees everything. She shows up at the construction site at dawn, watches the workers lay foundation, checks the quality of bricks, tests the mortar mixture. The workers think she's just a worried woman. They humor her, smile and nod, and assume she doesn't understand what she's looking at. Then she catches a contractor trying to use cheaper bricks than specified, lower quality, higher profit margin for him, lower building integrity for her. Elizabeth walks up to him, looks at the bricks, looks at him. These aren't what we agreed on. The contractor laughs. Ma'am, with all due respect, these bricks are fine. You won't know the difference. Elizabeth picks up a brick, examines it, then drops it. It cracks more easily than it should. She looks at the contractor. You're fired. Get off my property. You'll never work for E. Trump and Son again. The contractor starts to argue. Elizabeth doesn't raise her voice, doesn't get emotional, just points to the gate. Now. Word spreads. Elizabeth Trump is not to be cheated. She knows construction. She knows materials. She knows when men are trying to take advantage because they think she's just a helpless widow. And she doesn't tolerate it. The strategy is simple, brilliant, completely different from what rich developers are doing. While Manhattan developers are building luxury apartments for wealthy clients, Elizabeth builds simple, solid houses for working families. While others chase prestige projects that take years and often fail, Elizabeth builds quickly and sells quickly. While competitors take risks on elaborate designs, Elizabeth sticks to proven methods with tight budgets and reliable materials. Her rule: never build what you can't sell in a week. Her philosophy: rich people disappear during recessions. Working people always need a roof. Her execution: perfect. The houses sell, every single one. Elizabeth takes the profits and immediately invests in the next project, then the next, then the next. The company grows, not explosively, steadily, reliably, like compound interest, like inevitability. Fred is growing up. He's learning from his mother. Not just construction, not just business, but something deeper. How to survive when everyone expects you to fail. How to win when the game is rigged against you. How to turn disadvantage into advantage. At 15, Fred starts working construction sites after school. At 17, he's managing crews. At 21, he can finally sign legal documents himself. But Elizabeth doesn't hand over control. She's still the one who signs the checks, still the one who manages the money, still the one making the real decisions. Fred will eventually take over, eventually get credit for being the self-made man, eventually have his name on the company. But everyone who works for E. Trump and Son knows the truth. The woman with the German accent and the iron will is the real boss. October 1929. The stock market crashes, the Great Depression begins. Across America, businesses collapse. Banks fail, millionaires jump out of windows. The construction industry dies overnight. In Manhattan, the grandest real estate empires crumble into dust. In Queens, Elizabeth Trump watches it happen, doesn't panic, doesn't overextend, doesn't try to build her way out of trouble like desperate men are doing. She does the opposite. She waits, she saves. She maintains the properties she already has, and when prices hit rock bottom, when desperate sellers are practically giving away land, Elizabeth buys, carefully, strategically, only what she knows she can develop profitably. While titans of industry are ruined, the immigrant widow with the fake company name survives. More than survives, grows. Her competitors never understood. They saw construction as empire building. Elizabeth saw it as survival. They wanted glory. She wanted security. They took big risks for big rewards. She took small, calculated steps that compound into massive results. By 1935, the Depression is still devastating America. But E. Trump and Son is thriving. The company owns hundreds of properties, employs dozens of workers, has a reputation for solid, affordable housing that working families can actually afford. Elizabeth is 56 years old. She's been managing the company for 17 years. Her son Fred is 30. He's the public face now, the one who talks to newspapers, the one who gets photographed at construction sites, the one who gets called the brilliant young developer. But in the office, in the back room, Elizabeth still sits with the account books, still signs every major check, still makes every final decision. Fred consults her on everything, not because she demands it, because he knows she's right more often than anyone else. 1946. Donald John Trump is born, Elizabeth's grandson. She's 67 years old, sharp as ever, still involved in the business, still checking construction quality, still managing finances. For the next 20 years, Donald grows up with his grandmother as a constant presence. She's not warm, not soft. She's a German immigrant who survived a pandemic, poverty, and the Great Depression through sheer will and mathematical precision. But she teaches Donald things his father never could. She teaches him that the Trump name is a brand, that every building bearing that name must be impeccable because the name is worth more than the bricks and mortar. She teaches him that details matter, that a dirty building is the first sign of a failing business. She teaches him that luxury is good, but survival is better. She tells him stories about the day his grandfather died, about the lawyers who tried to steal everything, about the bankers who laughed at a woman trying to run a business, about how she proved them all wrong. Donald listens. He's young, doesn't fully understand, but something is absorbing. Something is being planted. The idea that when everyone says you can't, that's when you prove you will. Elizabeth Christ Trump dies in 1966. She's 87 years old. Donald is 20. He's in college, learning business, preparing to join his father's company. preparing to take the empire his grandmother built and his father expanded and turn it into something the world has never seen. The funeral is well attended, hundreds of people, employees, tenants, business associates. They all come to pay respects to Fred Trump's mother, the widow who helped her son build a real estate business, but very few of them know the real story. That Elizabeth didn't just help, she started it, she saved it. She built it from nothing while everyone told her it was impossible. The company records list Fred Trump as founder. The history books credit Fred Trump as the self-made millionaire. For decades, Elizabeth is a footnote, the supportive mother, the helpful widow, nothing more. Only later, when historians start digging through old bank documents, old contracts, old property records from the 1920s, does the truth emerge. The signature on everything isn't Fred Trump, it's E. Trump, Elizabeth Trump, the woman who couldn't vote but could build an empire, the woman who couldn't own a business in her own name but could fool every banker in New York. The woman who was supposed to sell everything and live on charity but instead created a dynasty. Years later, when Donald Trump is a billionaire, when his name is on buildings around the world, when he's running for president, reporters ask about his grandfather, about Friedrich Trump, who made money in the gold rush, about Fred Trump, who built affordable housing. Almost nobody asks about Elizabeth, but Donald knows. He grew up with her, heard her stories, watched her inspect properties into her 80s, saw the way his father consulted her on every major decision until the day she died. In interviews, when asked where his drive comes from, where his refusal to quit comes from, where his obsession with the Trump name as a brand comes from, he usually talks about his father, sometimes his grandfather. He rarely mentions his grandmother, the immigrant, the widow, the woman who built it all, because the world isn't ready to hear that the Trump empire, the empire that would eventually produce a president, was started by a woman who wasn't even allowed to vote when she began. A woman who had to pretend to be a man just to get bankers to take her money. A woman who everyone expected to fail, but who instead built something that lasted for 100 years. Elizabeth Christ Trump's legacy isn't just the buildings. It's the proof that when they laugh at you, when they say you can't, when they try to take everything from you because you're not the right gender or the right nationality or the right anything, you can still win. You just have to be smarter, tougher, more disciplined, more willing to work while they're sleeping, more willing to learn while they're assuming. The bankers who laughed at the widow in 1918 are long dead. Their banks might not even exist anymore. But the company she founded in 1923, still standing, still building, still carrying the name she fought to make legendary, E. Trump & Son. The E was always Elizabeth. The world just took 80 years to figure it out. So did you like this story? Then share it with that friend who needs to hear about a woman who changed the rules when the rules were designed to destroy her. Send it on WhatsApp. Tag them in the comments. Make this video reach more people. Stories like this deserve to be known. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because there are many more incredible stories coming about people who built empires when everyone said it was impossible.